Good afternoon, everyone. A really warm welcome to our first Post-16 GCSE Maths Network for the autumn term. I firstly wanted to say a huge thank you for taking the time out to join us today after what I'm sure has been a really busy day and what has undoubtedly been a hectic and challenging start to the academic year. So thank you so much for making time for this in your working day. My name is Katie McKnight. I've been working in the Pearson EdXL Maths team for the past few months on our Post-16 support, of which today's session is a part of. With me today from the Maths team is Saira Ahmed, who is the Senior Qualification Manager for GCSE Maths. And both Saira and I will be on hand throughout the session to answer any questions you may have on the qualifications or any of our support. We are just delighted to welcome Julia Smith today, and Julia will be leading this network, focusing on the motivation and engagement of your post-16 learners, especially in the current climate that we are in. Just before I hand over to Julia and we get started, I just wanted to reiterate what Gino said in that today's session will be recorded and you should be able to download the slides in the resource pod on your screen. This will be Julia's slides and also the support slides that were playing as you entered the meeting. But please don't worry if you can't for any reason, because the slides and the recordings will be sent to you very shortly, along with the certificate of attendance and a feedback form. Just as Gino said, please note you can use the group chat function throughout to engage with the content and any questions Julia might pose to you as a group, but please also use it to share ideas and questions with each other. And although we're online, use it as a chance to network if you can. So the Q&A box is where that you can ask a private question that only us as hosts can see. So group questions in the group chat. If you want to ask a private question, please use the Q&A box. Following the session, though, we'll make time for a short Q&A at the end where you can ask Julia any questions around the content today. So without any further ado, I'll hand over to Julia. I hope you really enjoy the session and thanks again for attending.
Thank you very much, Katie. Delighted to be here on a very wet and rainy afternoon in Clacton-on-Sea. It's great to see so many of you in the attendees list. I've got some familiar faces in there, familiar names that I'm very lucky to have worked with in the past, and so nice to see so many of you here at 4 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon. As I said, I've just been informed that we've had 25% of our average annual rainfall since September the 1st. So there you go. That struck you with a bit of maths straight away. So that's an interesting fact from Clacton-on-Sea. Okay, so my remit really is all about restarting the resitter, except they're not really resitting this year, so it's all a big sham, isn't it? We've got to think of a new name for our post-16 resitters. It's not a maths resit this year, it's something quite different. And it's all been, you know, it's all a bit of just a big dilemma at the moment, isn't it? The way forward, looking back to what's happened last June, looking forward to what might be happening currently and on into next year. But, you know, there are plenty of things that we can do. I am a rabid tweeter. Some of you will know. You can see there my Twitter handle. And I learn so much and I keep abreast of events on Twitter. And I've got, you know, real big connections there on Twitter now. And it's a fabulous place. So if you're not on Twitter, that's where you need to be, I think, in terms of change and resources and ideas and approaches, as everyone's kind of struggling with the current arena and suggestions of a way forward. Our theme of the day really is about engaging and motivating these students in the midst of what is, you know, a very difficult set of circumstances for some people. So I'm happy to take you through a foray into looking at what we can do to engage and motivate our learners. As I said, I was preparing a bit yesterday and I went down a Twitter manhole, if you like, not even a rabbit hole yesterday. I was looking at Pomodoro revision techniques using tomato-based timers. And then I struck upon something called a Rust exam analysis, which I will mention as we get further into some particular techniques which are quite different but maybe have a place for our students that have seen it all before and done it all before. Please, as Katie has mentioned, put any questions that you might have into the group chat, into the Q&A if there's something a little bit more niche to you that you'd like me to have a look at, and I will be picking up on these as we go and also post-event as well. Good. So we're talking about motivating and engaging the re-sitters. They're not really re-sitters mentioned. And the suggestion was that this year, having had the lockdown from March, that there were possibly going to be less students, which I think actually did come to play with the increase that we saw in the grade 4, the grade 4s that were did from the centre grade assessments. But possibly less of them, but possibly they were going to need more support, and looking at how we're going to restart them. I will make mention of the November paper, which is in 20 days' time, as I've seen on the local bus, on the front of the bus. So we need to think about what we can do for November to keep that motivation going and engaging those re-sitters. I'm going to try and introduce a toolbox of resources. I've made you a special Padlet, which I will be keeping live post-event, so you'll have that there for a few months going forward. So grab anything off that Padlet that you like the look of. It's all free. It's a very good F word. So we just need to have a look at some really specific resources that will help this particular type of student, but also we need to think about working online and offline. We need contingency planning for maths in the classroom. I hear of classrooms where they have face-to-face teaching going on whilst they're mirroring it online as well. That's quite a challenge. I also am hearing of people that we know where they have technical difficulties at home. So what can we do that's going to help those students the most to gain this, the elusive Willy Wonka golden ticket of the grade 4, because they will have to keep going. Can anyone tell me who that picture is? Who's the girl in the picture? Stick it into the group chat. I'll give you 30 seconds. Who's that girl? Come on, someone will know who it is. Someone knows. Who's the girl in the picture? Does anybody know who that is? Someone will know her. It's not me. Someone who resat it 7 times from Kate. The girl who took GCSE 10 times then passed. Okay, got a difference of opinion already. Let's take the median of the two, shall we say. My daughter, no. Multiple re-sitter, 9 times. Lauren Reed, thank you, Jude. That's Jude, one of my lovely students who was on a course with me recently. Thanks, Jude. Yes, Lauren Reed, she sat her GCSE maths, and she needed it. It took her 9 attempts. She needed it. She wanted to go off to do occupational therapy at university, first one in her family to do anything of the sort. She got there in the end, and it was a lovely story from the City of Plymouth College. But she didn't have to perhaps keep going for the 9 times. But most of our students, whilst they are with us at college, they will have to sit multiple times, and that's one of the dilemmas that we have. It's a condition of funding. It has to happen to them until they get that grade 4. So how can we motivate them and how can we engage them better? Good. Let's look at the etymology of the words. I always find with maths that's quite an interesting starting point, looking at where the words emanate from. And motivate, from the Latin, moving people to action. And there was an interesting article in Times Ed last month about the fact of motivation and the grading, the centre assessed grades that undermined that motivations, but they will engage, I would say re-engage, and persist when high quality forms of motivation are supported by classroom environments, online and offline, that facilitate optimal student learning. So what can we do then that is going to support that motivation in what we do in the classroom and in the virtual classroom as well? So let's just take a step back from national numeracy. We know the facts. We know that GCSE maths at a good grade is very good for our students. if you look at the National Numeracy website, and I have put a link on the Padlet, which I will get to towards the end of the presentation, if you look at it, there's proven evidence there to suggest that a student who works over their lifetime at work will earn roughly £150,000 more than somebody who hasn't got that GCSE at a good grade. They'll have better health, they'll have better opportunities, better educated children. I think even now, more than ever, when we're going into whatever we're going into in the current working environment, the grade 4 would be fantastic, but actually, do you know, the grade 5 could be even better. And the mantra that the National Numeracy have, and there is just a very short video on that Padlet, is about students need to value that qualification first of all. They need to value it. And if you've ever seen your group of students when they get their results on results day, if they have got that grade 4, they do value it. They really do value it. They have to see the benefit of that qualification, or what's in it for them. If we can get those two right, then they've got to see that there's a part to play. They have a part to play in this. It's not something that just happens to them. And there are lots of analogies there with football and with learning a musical instrument, learning a skill of any sort. It's very similar to maths, that, you know, it's just about practice, 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 practice. You've got to take some control for your own learning, and that then becomes a more motivation for them, because they can see the benefit of it. Lauren Reed knew the benefit of it. She wouldn't get into university unless she had it. She valued it, she saw the benefit, and she just kept going. That resilience, that perseverance. But I haven't seen the teaching of resilience and perseverance anywhere in our maths curriculum, but it's certainly what we have to do alongside all that we have to do in any case. Yeah, good. Oh, Rebecca told you. Thank you, Jude. Wonderful. So yes, think. You know, be more Lauren. That's my advice to your learners. Tell them the story of Lauren. You can easily find the news article. City of Plymouth College did a fantastic job with Lauren, and Lauren herself took control of that qualification and earned it for herself. 9 attempts. We would commonly see on my travels around the country when I was allowed out previously. I would commonly see students who were on their 7th and final attempt. They'd sat it in the November, they'd sat it in the June of their level 1 course, their level 2 course, they probably sat it another 4 times, and then they would have had their year 11 sitting, so that's 5 times, and then in level 3, their final 2 attempts. That was quite common, but Lauren, bless her, she took an extra year out and took another 2 attempts. Every time she got that step closer. And we know, a man on the bus told me that there are usually around 3,000 resit students who are only 1 or 2 marks below that grade 4. So there's a significant number of our students who are quite close to passing it. So, you know, we need to be able to identify those quickly and then engage them and show them things a little bit differently. Good. So the key issues that we have, obviously COVID, oi, oi, oi. It's a very, very unusual situation. I did speak to Graham when all this was happening, and they said about calculated grades. And I said, well, this is just nonsense. It's nonsense. But then he did remind me that actually COVID is nonsense. It's nobody's fault. And it was just trying to make the best of a very difficult situation. And I think that's exactly what they did with those centre assessed grades. There wasn't going to ever be an easy answer. But going forward, we still seem to be in the grips of whatever this is, and there's a big geographic divide going on as well with lockdowns. And so what we need to be is responsive. We need to have something online and offline, and that sense of leaving no one behind. You know, if they haven't got access to a laptop, if they haven't got access to Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or whatever reasons, what can we do so that we ensure that no one is left behind? Because they're already talking about the larger divide between the haves and the have-nots. We are time poor and cash poor in further education, and have been for some time. All the rhetoric tells us that we're valued, but actually that doesn't translate into what we have, and there's too many 0-hour contracts, etc. out there, and no resources. So whether that will change going forward. However, we are resource heavy for Key Stage 4 for Year 11, and I think we're getting a heck of a lot better at resourcing our research students because it's a different type of resource that's needed. And I know Pearson, as well as other awarding bodies, who will remain nameless, are working very hard to support a substantial amount of the community. You know, when you think about 2019 summer, there were 115,000 students who resat GCSE maths. So it's not an inconsequential lot of people. When we talk about, you know, exam sittings and results and calculated grades, we already know for our November sitting that we've potentially not seen huge numbers, although some colleges I know have got more than 500 for the AOC. We know that they've got more than 500 students resitting their GCSE, not resitting, but sitting their GCSE because they weren't particularly happy with their centre assessed grade from the summer. There is a suggestion that there are a bigger number of higher tier students this year as well. But again, I think all of the techniques and all of the resources that we'll be considering will help us to help the higher tier students as well. Traditionally, it's usually the foundation students that we work with. So I think there's this sense that, you know, centre assessed grade, calculated grades may well be back for next year. We can't, that it won't. It will be situation as normal. The exam sittings themselves, you know, with social distancing measures and all of that entails is going to be very challenging for students and for the colleges themselves. It's very challenging times, but FE is very resilient, and we can do and will do a good job. Yes, so let's just think about the November series then going forward. So 20 days time to that first sitting, the first paper coming up on the 3rd of November, I believe, all over by 5th of November. So if you have any students there that are working on that, you know, there's this sense that, you know, just want to get over the line, just want to get that grade 4, I'll never have to do it again. You know, that's, for some, that's motivation enough. But actually, the students, I've met a number of students who said, well, my teacher said I was going to get a grade 5, and actually I got grade 3. So the sense that, you know, you could get a grade 4 this time if you have sort of hit the deck running from when you were engaged at college again, back at college, back doing the qualification. But there is also that sense, you know, that if grade 4 is our if it is our benchmark, you know, if that's the highest that we're kind of aspiring to. I know a number of colleges will challenge their learners. Well, if you get that grade 4 in the January, on January the 14th, the results day, you know, why don't you come back and carry on and try and get the grade 5 or the grade 6? We'll put you in for higher for next June. And I think that's a really good strategy, because some students do feel as though they were let down with their centre assessed grades. Again, the man on the bus told me, I think there were about 63%. I'm just trying to look at my notes here, 63% of teachers, I better get this right, haven't I? Where's it gone? I will come back to that. I must get these facts and figures right. Yes, a lot of our students were perhaps very unhappy with the grade that they were given by their teachers. But from the teacher's point of view, in a post-16 environment, if you haven't seen that student, the attendance had been very poor, then you haven't got an awful lot to go on in some circumstances. I know with functional maths, they could carry on assessing them post-March 23rd. But up to that point, with GCSEs, that was all the evidence that you had to go on. So there has to be a sense that it's about evidence gathering now. And there is an interesting report coming out from the EEF, which I will make reference to later on, which does talk about assessment and is going to be very interesting with some case studies. So I will refer to that a little bit later on. I'm looking forward to that. It's the EEF, Integrated Evidence into Maths Teaching. So it's addressing, you know, assessment and the value of assessment, because it myth busts in some of the documents you see already. For example, just testing a student student won't make them any better at learning the maths. Well, actually, it will do. And the case studies, I think, are going to be there to support that. In my classes, when I was head of maths at Colchester Institute, I would expect my students to be sitting 4 or 5 mocks throughout the year. And when you look at a number of colleges, from February half term, I know of several colleges where the expectation was that they would do a full past paper every other week from the February half term to the exam. It's all right if you tell them that on day one. I think springing that to them next Monday when you might see your students might be a different kettle of fish. There are some key issues going on at the present time that we need to be aware of. So yeah, it's a challenging situation, but we are resilient. We can do this. Be more, Lauren. That's my advice. So for the facts then, let's look at some facts. For every student who improved their progress score, one lowered theirs. That was from Stuart Foster when he was talking about resits from the NCFE. 63% of students did not improve their score in 2019 in those CAGs. Some of them actually, as I say, they were expecting a grade 5. Some of them went backwards. A third of students have had 2 or more resits. So again, it's the same old culprits. And the further they are away from that first sitting, the less likely they are to pass. Traditionally, if they'd sat the paper at school in year 11, the November opportunity was the best time for them to sit, because that's the best time. They may have had the summer slump, as we called it, when they were away from school over the summer. But it's the best opportunity because they're not too far away and they can pick up the ball and keep running with it, hopefully. We also had calculated grades that conflated the problems. There weren't too many of them, but we did have some students who were awarded a grade 6, which isn't even possible on the foundation tier. So I don't really know what was going on there. But hey, everything was unfair at that point. And we had 115,000 students who resat maths in 2019, 1, 2, 3, or even 9 times, as we now know. Think Lauren Reid, be more Lauren. And it's about this culture, isn't it? Culturally, it's everybody's problem. In a college, in a school, if you have a resit class, it's everybody's duty and responsibility. I see too many places, not so much now, I have to say, because I've got in there and told them off. But I've seen too many people say, oh, well, that's the maths team doing the GCSE maths. No, it's not. It's from what's written up on the chef's board in terms of the prices, all the way through to the principal. It's everybody's issue. It's vocational staff, it's the GCSE maths team's issue, it's the parents' issue, it's the students' issue. And it's, it should be challenged. When a student says, oh, why have I got to do this, sir? When am I ever going to need the maths? Why am I going to have to do this? Well, A, it's a part of your course. B, it's good for you. It's like fruit and vegetables. You don't realise it. And actually, it'll lead to better things. I think even more so in this current climate. We just get the ones that they just hate the maths, don't they? And I'm going to reference later on the Maths Anxiety booklets, which is a very good read from the roundtable at Pearson as a good read to read about maths anxiety. We get students that say hate maths. We get staff that say, oh, hate maths. I've seen learning assistants, learning support sidle up to students. Come on, let's do this together. Let's do these fractions together. I hate maths too. I hated maths at school. I don't do maths. I had one student who told me, I don't do maths. I'm like my mum. Well, it's not hereditary, is it? But there we go. That's their understanding of it all. They don't do maths. I came here to be a hairdresser, miss. Why am I having to do this? Because it's the law. So the first opportunity then to win a Money Can't Buy mathematical tea towel. I will give you the opportunity. There's a mathematical tea towel. Actually, there's a few on offer. There is an Edexcel maths revision card set as well. It comes with a free pair of glasses because the writing is so small, but they are very good. 100 revision cards in that little handy pack there for the bus or the train or the tube. You can't go on them now, can you? So anyway, for in front of the telly at home. And I've also got a catch-up 2020 revision pack for foundation with knowledge checks, diagnostic self-tests, revision guides and app access and workbooks as well. So all of that is on offer, but you need to tell me if someone says to you, whether that's another teacher, someone in the local garage, although we're not buying any petrol anymore. Someone says to you, I hate maths, a student. What do you say to them? What do you say to them? If you'd like to, and I will announce the winners tomorrow morning. Katie can hold me to that. Go to menti.com and the code there on the slide is 9198956. Quickly jot that one down. Just go there and I will try and share my screen towards the end of the session. What's your answer? What do you tell them? Remember, this is a money can't buy mathematical tea towel. So it's very special. Do not use it as a tea towel, although it does work as a tea towel. One chap came running up to me at maths conference and said, oh, could I have one of your mathematical tea towels, please? And I said, well, you don't just get them. Why do you want it? And he said, because it's Mother's Day tomorrow and I haven't got her anything yet. He didn't get a tea towel. So, you know, we need to tackle this culture. We need to challenge it. Why do you hate maths? Well, you didn't have me as your teacher, so there you go. You'll be all right. Why do you hate maths? Oh, I didn't have any good teachers at school. My teachers hated me. I was naughty at school. I wasn't allowed in. That kind of thing. You know, you can have some great conversations around that. But culturally, we need to tackle that as they do in Wales on the petrol pumps. You know, you do the maths. It's about this cultural challenge, isn't it? So have a go at the Menti response, please. If you haven't used Mentimeter before as an online resource, there is a free element to it. You can buy the whole package, but the free element is really good. And it will allow you to set up things, polls and questions and free flow, word clouds, all sorts of bits and pieces. And it's very, very easy to use. And your students can actually access it via their phone as well. And you can give them codes and do all sorts of bits around it. So the code is 9198956, menti.com. So please put your entries in there. And as we said, you know, there's prizes. Woohoo! So for me, teaching resit for as long as I have done, it all emanates from the 9 basics. A resit student, a student who has left year 11, will have some gaps in these basics, the 9 basics. They won't have every gap. They have already probably got a grade 3, which is why they might be in your class. They will have some gaps. They will have some misconceptions. And for me, that's the starting point. I was lucky enough to be picked up by the EEF 2 years ago to start a research project, which sadly crashed and burned due to COVID. But hey ho, I'm not bitter. And that was the starting point from my 5 hours curriculum, this revision-based curriculum for resit students. 50% of that exam is assessment objective number 1, recall and fluency. If they got all of those 50% of the marks right, they're more or less there. They do need some AO2 and AO3 marks to help them over the line, and we know they're particularly poor at those. But as we know, the hierarchical nature of mathematics means that if you can't do the basics, everything else becomes a struggle. And maybe that's why they are where they are. So to my mind, the starting points are with the 9 basics. And then we move on to seeing that in this structure from William Emeny, Maths Master on Twitter, and he has an excellent blog and website, Great Maths Teaching Ideas, and he shows the connectivity between all of the aspects of maths in our curriculum, and the nodes are then explained in the second slide here, and it's a lovely curriculum map to have. It shows you that, you know, the smaller the writing, you can't do those bits in the small writing without it emanating back to the larger pieces of writing. And at the heart of our curriculum is those 9 basics. If you become more fluent, and I always ask my students, you know, how many of you are fluent in a different language? And they'll put their hands up and they'll tell me Portuguese, all sorts of different languages, Polish, whatever. And it's brilliant to see, you know, talk about fluency. Mathematical fluency is where our starting points are. And if I just go back, those 9 basics to get students quickly up to the point where they can tell the times tables, when they can convert fractions, decimals, percentages. they can work with ratio, and we've now seen all of these concrete, pictorial and abstract representations now with our bar modelling and algebra tiles. I even saw a set of knitted algebra tiles last week or the week before from Karen Hancock. Fantastic fun. But we've got a whole host of the negative and positive counters, and I know Jude has some fantastic TikTok alternative methods and bits and pieces to get to grips with the 9 basics. If your students are fluent in those 9 basics, everything else becomes quicker. So we need that at the heart of our curriculum to start off with. Let me just go back. So we've got our curriculum map there, a spiral curriculum from William Emily, which is a lovely thing to share with students and a different way of looking at things. And I think that in itself is an interesting point because your students have seen all of the maths before. It's all about revision. They've seen it all before. They have seen fractions since year 3 at primary school. They have seen mean, average since year 6, year 5, year 6 at primary school. And yet here they are at 16, 17, 23, 27, and they still can't do enough to get over the grade 4 boundary. It's about plugging those gaps, finding out what the gaps are, plugging those gaps, practicing until they cannot get it wrong, practicing the easy stuff until it becomes fluent and make what they know even better. Don't worry about what they don't know. They don't need 100% to pass the exam. They don't need 100% to get a grade 5 even from our foundation tier. But again, this does apply to that higher tier as well. And if there is an increase in higher entries this year, then, you know, that's something that we can work upon. They don't need 100% to pass. Dylan William is a great educator. Take a look, you know, makes a lot of sense, and I take a lot of advice from him. And it's about making the students the owners of their own learning, making them the architect of their own learning. If they take responsibility for it, I've got it in twice there, apologies. If they're taking some control over it, you know, they've got a part to play. It's not something that just happens to them. Your reset classes should look, feel and sound different to they did at school, because otherwise you're just going to get the same result. If you are in a school and you've got this reset group, well, it's got to look and feel and sound different to the way they had it before. It's about them taking ownership of it and taking some direction in where they're going to go, with some very well chosen resources and support along the way. In a lot of classes, Professor Susan Wallace, in her fabulous book, which I'm trying to find on my bookshelf, but I can't. Anyway, Professor Susan Wallace coined this phrase, you know, you're dealing with rhinos. They're really here in name only. They're there because they've got to be, because, you know, that's the legislation. They've got to be there because they haven't got their grade 4. If they are there because they're not happy with their centre assessed grade, so they've got a 5 and they need a 6 to go on to A level, or they've got a 5 and they need a 6 to go on to university later on, then maybe they've got some ownership there of what they want to actually aim for. Be more Lauren. Remember Lauren. So with tools in the toolbox, at 16 years old, students have seen all of those calculations. It's time to say, I don't think you learn it like that. And John Hattie, you know, tells us that, you know, it's our job as educators to actually work with students, and if they can't do a particular method one way, then we need to find another way in. And if they can't find it that way, we need to find another way. And us as maths teachers, we need to think about how we teach maths and how we do maths. We tend to teach maths the way that we were taught it, which is fine for our maths, but you might come across a student who's seen fractions for 7 years and still can't add 2 of them together or divide 2 of them together. So putting some tools into your toolbox is going to pay dividends. Sharing methods, and I'll go back to one of the great educators, Professor Malcolm Swan. He forged my teaching as a young teacher at the time. His 8 effective principles, one of which is, you know, that rich collaborative tasks, collaborating and sharing practice, starting with the 9 basics. You know, how would you do this? How would you do this? Is there another way that we can do this? How can we do this a different way? Finding different methods, because we know that any valid mathematical method will get the marks. That's what the Department for Education said. That was quite a big change, and that's helped us enormously in post-16 education and post-16 maths. So when we look at a simple, she says simple, multiplication such as 23 times 36, if I had written it with a 23 above the 36, I would be leading them into column multiplication. There are 16 different ways you can do long multiplication, so I'm not suggesting that you get to grips with multiple methods, but at least 2 or 3 different ways. Napier's bones, perhaps, the lattice method, the Chinese method, the gelosia method, whatever you want to call it. Breaking it down so that you can get the final answer. Any valid mathematical method will get the marks. Number lines, all sorts of different methods. Knowing, let's look at the second one, 12.5% of 80. Well, our usual conventional methods would be to go and find 10%, find 1%, double that to get 2%. From our 1%, we get halve it to get 5%. You've got 5 or so steps going on there, obviously with a non-calculator. But knowing that 12.5% is equivalent to an eighth, knowing that fluently, an eighth of 80 is 10. It's 2 steps. You're there, bang. So that fluency, those alternative ways of looking at the simple stuff, might really, really assist those learners. It's a different way to look at it. Calculating 2/5 plus 3/7. Straightforward enough. Normally, we'd find the common denominator and then calculate our numerators. Both words we never use at all in real life. It's not real life, it's maths. But actually, if they've got to 16, 17, 23, and they still can't add those 2 fractions together, which is a very, very common stumbling block, it's time to say, I don't think you can do it like that with that method. Have you seen this method? Or have you seen that method? The fraction frame, believe me, is a deal breaker there. And with a division of fractions as well, 1/8 divided by 3/5, there are multifarious different ways you can do that apart from KFC. If they can't do KFC, then it really is time to say, forget the silly acronym. I don't think you learn it like that. Have you seen this method? So it's not how you learned your maths. It really isn't. If I think back to Dr. Johns and Mr. Little, they would be amazed at what I'm doing now, because I didn't really learn a huge amount from them. I have to say I've learned more in my teacher training and from other people in terms of alternative methods. And I'm quicker. Why wouldn't I want to be better at maths, quicker at maths? Because I'm going to save myself some time, and that's rather good, and all the marks along the way as well. But we're just talking about assessment objective number 1. We know that half of the exam, 50% of the exam, is AO1, but our students will need some of AO2 and AO3, and that's a little bit more complex. Assessment objective number 2, reasoning and communicating mathematically. The starting point of that is verbalising it, talking about maths. You can only do that if they're there in the classroom with you, and we know our attendance is notoriously poor. But actually, I've had some evidence to say that attendance is better online, in online classrooms. There is some evidence of ghosting going on, which may be happening right now with you lot. I don't know, I hope not. Where you're actually there, but you're not really there, you've gone back to sleep. But yes, it's interesting, isn't it? Talking about it, assessment objective number 2 and assessment objective number 3. Polly is your man for problem solving. The heuristics of problem solving from Polly are well worth a read. But our students need to be subjected to that. Chief Examiner's reports, and the Edexcel ones in particular, will tell us what students struggle with. So we have to do that. It's quite straightforward when you look at it like that. If we know that they're not even, if the statement is not many students attempted this question, if it's a long question, 5 marks, it's because people like our research students are looking at that question, not liking what they see, and moving on without even attempting to get 1 or 2 of the 5 marks on offer. If they went in it with that kind of approach, what could you do to get 1 mark? What could you do to get 2 marks? Rather than just avoiding it, then we've got some kind of attempts of getting into those AO2 and AO3 marks. And when we come to the Padlet, I'll share with you some of my favourite resources. So, any valid mathematical method. Top tips again. I'm full of top tips, as a lot of you will know, and I've learned these really from travelling around the country when I was allowed out, and picking up tips, and they're all stolen from different people. So I just my practice, magpied from different people. My practice has been developed from other people around the country. And again, if you've got some top tips, I want you to put them into the group chat. Who knows, there might be 3 or 4 spare. I'm just looking at the pile of tea towels that I have, which is rather a large pile because the research project was abandoned. Yes, there might be some more tea towels on offer. So what are your top tips for research students, for post-16 students? Because it's rather a different breed of student to my mind. There might be adult learners you're working with. You might be working in a secure provision, secure estate. I don't know. So what are your top tips as well? Because then I can add them to my list and not claim them for myself, but I can keep giving people suggestions and ideas, which I'm sure they appreciate. It is all, for me, it's all about practice, daily practice. And some of you will be aware that I've brought out 5 R's online, which is my curriculum research that was abandoned. But it's about getting students to do a little bit of maths every day. Keeping those key topic muddles apart. So we know from the Chief Examiner's reports that students muddle up area and perimeter. They muddle up mean, median and mode. We can think of various different things that they muddle up. So when you come to look at them in your revision, in your resit year, in your post-16, don't tackle area and perimeter at the same time. Tackle area, but do area of simple 2D shapes, compounds 2D shapes, and area of circles. It's all the same thing. But when you come to perimeter, revise perimeter, the next term, keep them well apart, revise perimeter with circumference. Because why would you do it the same way? It might be in the textbook that area and perimeter all sit together, but hey, presto, when it comes to the exam, they can do the actual maths, but they muddle up the terminology. Mean, median, mode. The biggest problem they have is remembering which M is for which. So revise mean on its own, keep it well away from mode and median, but bring them all together at the end. Tackle misconceptions head on. I can hear Professor Malcolm Swan telling us that one. We get many of those questions now telling us, Susan says that Marjorie is going to get £60 after we've split the money. Is Susan correct? So that's where the AO2 comes in. And your starting points, give them sentence stems, that they've just got to finish off, scaffold them into it. But tackling those misconceptions head on. And there's a brilliant resource from Steve Blades, which I will refer you to. There's a YouTube channel full of them when we get to the Padlet very shortly. It is a revision year. They've seen all of the maths. They've seen enough to pass. They really have seen enough to pass. It's just that we need to sort out a few bits. Find out what they can't do and do that. Find out what they can do and make that even stronger. If they don't know it, we haven't really got time to do that until the end, until nearer the exam. Rumble along with everything that they kind of do to really strengthen that, that they can do to strengthen that and make that better. So that practicing till they cannot get it wrong, and do maths. Do shed loads of maths, lots of it, half an hour every day. On the bus, when could you do half an hour every day? That's the first questions to your students. Breakfast time, 3 in the morning, it's that 24/7 learning. I don't know if you remember the Martini advert with, what was the name? Lorraine Swift, wasn't it, I think? Yeah, that anytime, any place, anywhere. If you give them access to maths that they can do, and we'll give them the answers, or they know where to go for the answers, there's a chance that they might actually do it. And some of them do. It's funny that, isn't it? It's giving them the control, giving them the tools by which they can actually help themselves. I'm conscious of time. I'm probably going to last. I could keep going till 7 o'clock, but I promised Katie that I wouldn't. So I want your top tips in that group chat, please. So I've got some coming up there. Thank you. Yes, so some of that looks really, really good. I'm going, importance of it. Attend the lessons. That's a really good starting point, isn't it? We can't help you if you're not there. Yeah, they're coming in thick and fast now. So keep those coming in, please. And what I will probably do, if Katie can grab that chat for me, I think she's going to pick it up, then I might amalgamate your responses and add that to the Padlet tomorrow or by Friday. Diagnostic questions, yeah, thank you, Bruce. Wonderful, good. Keep those coming, please. The more top tips, the more we can share, the more it's more like a proper network event rather than just a lecture from me. Lorna, what do you mean by yet? Do you mean as in I can't do it yet? The old Carol Dweck. Yeah, absolutely. Revision cards, Corbett Maths, obviously, but there are the wonderful revised Edexcel GCSE 91 revision cards as well. Revised Smart and Save Time. I'm looking and reading the blurb on it now. So obviously those are great as well. Growth Mindset, yeah. Quick formulae test at the end of every lesson. Yes, when we look at the Padlet, we've got some really good posters from Edexcel, which I'm going to refer you to. Things like the command words, knowing what sketch means and draw, etc. Yeah, we've got some great things coming in there. Keep coming with those top tips, because then we can share them all. I don't know how many's in the room now, but there's over 100 of you, so keep them coming, and then we've got a really good resource set we can do something with. Good. So in the Emporium, then in the drawers, when I did some work for the research project I was doing, it seemed very apparent that the AO1 questions were a struggle for our students. So what Edexcel did for us at the time was produce these first 8 papers. So they are papers which are available. They're special papers. I think we did it for a November boot camp at a college I was working with, and Edexcel were very responsive and came up with these first 8 papers. So there are 2 papers, and they are made entirely of 1 mark and 2 mark questions. So the first 8 papers there are on the Padlet for you to have a look at, and they're really valuable because it's a paper that a student can sit, and they should be getting 60, 70, 80% of those marks, because they are just really those AO1 recall type questions. They've also on Emporium got gobbledygook questions, which are really wordy questions, but they are gobbledygook. The context is entirely irrelevant. It's like Jabberwocky. We don't know what a slithy toad is, but I don't think I'd particularly like it. Exactly the same with the gobbledygook questions. The wordy questions, wordy problems, where you kind of you look at them and you think, oh, I haven't got a clue what this is about, but I've got some maths here. Let's see what I can do. So it really helps students. Those gobbledygook questions really helps students when we are trying to get them into something they don't like the look of. Really, really good. So we've got revision card sets. I've alluded to them. Revision guides. There's Pearson online tutorials as well. I've been looking at. There's a whole Just Maths drawer. I know several of you have been saying about the test from Just Maths. Yeah, there's a whole drawer devoted to Just Maths, a lucky girl. And obviously Seeger as well in the team. There is a 1-year post-16 scheme of work as well. And I think some of the slides at the beginning were talking also about a lot more of the other resources, such as the practice papers, practice papers, secure mocks, the 1 mark papers, aiming for 4 papers, the gold, silver and bronze papers, the themed papers as well are all very useful, all of the problem solving papers. And it's, there is an awful lot of support in there for your students in the Emporium drawers. The difficulty I always have is knowing which drawer to go to, but certainly the practice papers is a very good place. And I know there's a new secure mock coming out very shortly. And I think, that evidence gathering that we're going to have to be doing, that EEF report, looking at addressing assessment is going to be quite valuable when those case studies come out, because I think that will help us with centre assessed grades as well. Looking at what goes on there, interesting, wasn't it, that we didn't get that kickback by 3 weeks for the core of maths and English. Reminding our students that, they can get a grade 4 even if they only sit 2 papers. Yes, they've got to get quite a bit right in those 2 papers, but, it is possible. I know that Ofqual said that to the exam boards. it has to be possible for a student to get a grade 4 just from 2 papers. So I know in the past I've had students who, for whatever reason, have missed one of the papers, where they can still get a grade 4 just by sitting 2 of them. So, please come back and sit some of the others. Right, 10 minutes to go then until questions. Keep your suggestions coming, please. Maths anxiety, I referenced this a bit earlier, and it is on the Padlet of Resources. A really good document, tackling that anxiety. Comes back to that growth mindset work, doesn't it? Carol Dweck, Joe Bowler work, like them or loathe them. It's interesting. And I had one lady that I was teaching very, very recently on teacher training who didn't like the idea of maths anxiety at all, because she actually had medical anxiety, and it brought out, real medical health issues, which she didn't believe that maths anxiety did. But I have seen grown people cry in initial teacher training when they had to do those god-awful QTS numeracy skills tests to even become a teacher, even think of becoming a teacher. And I've seen grown adults cry, men and women cry, because they just couldn't do the maths, but it meant so much to them. So, sharing these kind of facts and figures with our students is no bad thing at all. They can see that it's not just them. And when you do look at the fact that half the adult population has the skills of an 11-year-old, the maths skills of an 11-year-old, you've got to wonder, why and how things can be better in society. And we've got to tackle that. Hence the competition. I hate maths. What's your answer? We're going to have a look at that in a second. Again, more top tips. It's about creating those maths habits, good habits, especially when you're working at home, online, the Pomodoro tomato that comes out, which will help us do some focus revision for 25 minutes. It was a great idea. When can you find half an hour every day to do your maths? Just do maths, loads of it. How are you going to get really good at football? How are you going to get really good at playing on FIFA football? You play it every day. It's exactly the same with maths. It's one of those skill-based things. You just get better. Can't read about it. You can't look at it. You can't look at bits and pieces, and it just goes in by osmosis. You just got to do it. You've got to get stuck and then figure out, how do you get unstuck? What do you do when you get stuck? Show them the curriculum. I'm looking at this revision card set from Edexcel in front of me. That's the maths curriculum in a box. Have they ever, just laid it all out on a table and had a look at it? Have they gone through and gone through the topic list in maybe a revision book and traffic lighted it? Green, yeah, I know that. I'm not so sure about that. I really don't know vectors. I really don't know Venn diagrams. Make that curriculum visible to them. We know chief examiners tell us they're rubbish with a calculator, compass, protractor and ruler. If you've ever seen a 16-year-old trying to draw a circle, it's like a 4-year-old. They just haven't had enough practice. And I've put some suggestions on the Padlet, which we will get to in a couple of minutes, having a look at that. Exam technique. So this rabbit hole I went down yesterday talked about rust exam analysis. So a teacher was giving back a mock paper to his students, and the students would look at it with rust in mind. They looked at why they didn't get the question right. Was it because they haven't revised it enough? They need to revise it. That's your R. Was it that there's an understanding error? Is there a misconception? So their understanding was unclear, so that's a U. Was it a silly mistake? There's your S. Or was it technique, exam technique? So the rust analysis, self-analysis by students when they looked at a feedback given to them on a past paper, I quite like that. I can't find any evidence for where it's come from. I like to delve into the research of these things behind it, but there are people who are working on it and trying to find where it emanated from. So we know that exam technique is poor, the numpty errors, the drawing, they don't draw the right line in a graph, then even their numbers are unclear. Maybe they've copied numbers across incorrectly. All of those numpty errors. It's not the student being the numpty. You can see the picture of the Muppets there, because I always call them Muppet errors. Negotiate what and how to work. Revision is a jumble of maths. It doesn't follow a linear fashion. The exam doesn't follow a linear fashion in terms of topics. So jump around. You know, what do you want to work on today? Do you fancy doing some bearings? Do you fancy doing some inequalities? What about, you know, this? What about that? Sort out those 9 basics first of all. That would always be my starting point. And sort out poor exam technique. I've got 5 minutes left, I think. Good. So we're now on to having a look at the Padlet. Hopefully, I'm going to click on this link and we will have a look at the Padlet together. I just want to see if I can see some more response. Oh, wow. Okay, good. I'm going to have to share my screen because I would like you to see all of your lovely resources, all of your lovely suggestions. Hold on Mentimeter. Hopefully you are seeing my screen. Katie, can you just let me know if you are seeing the screen, please, in our chat? And there we go. We've got Edexcel. Those are all your answers.
Yes, we are.
I hate maths. What's your answer? Excellent. Good, good. So you can see Mentimeter scrolls it up and down. And I've been in a conference with David Cork, the AOC, and I've been at the back of the room going, wow, this looks great. I've not seen anything like this before. You're all right there. Yeah, I hate maths. What's your answer? I love it. Brilliant. Math loves you. Yeah, exactly. There'll be right there, wouldn't it? There's a very thin line between hate and love. Imagine saying I love maths. How would you feel? Exactly. You need to now understand the government rule of 6 and socially distance safely. Absolutely brilliant. I don't really like the dentist. I think, yeah. Have you ever eaten anything you hated the first few times, but which later grew on you? And humour me, turn up, take control, have the confidence to try, be willing. I will, again, I will put a link to this into the onto the Padlet for you. That's wonderful. Thank you very. I'll stay calm and don't hate maths. Excellent. Thank you very much. And that's just now gonna scroll through again. So thank you for that. I might as well stay here and then show you my Padlet. So I kind of trawled through my favourite Edexcel resources and stuck them all onto a Padlet for you. So grab a note of that URL, padlet.com/testmaths1, that's me, / restart the resitter. Well, they're neither really, are they? So we've got that document I mentioned about maths anxiety. You've got some wonderful posters there from Edexcel about the formulae, geometric reasoning. Most of them on there are relevant for our foundation students, maybe not so much the circle theorems, but the others will be very, very relevant and pertinent. Conversions, yeah, remember I said about fractions, decimals, percentages. Students, for some reason, hang up to fractions, but aren't so bad on decimals and percentages, but not recognising that actually they are all the equivalent of each other. So knowing that an eighth is 12.5%, like that, being fluent in that fact, when you're faced with some recall, some fluent work in a question, you're going to save time. Those are the gobbledygook questions. I've got 2 sets there. Graham alerted me to those. Fantastic. They are higher, but actually it's more the sense of the approach that really, really works. I'm full of these tremendous top tips. There's some ones there, particularly written for students when they're facing that November exam. Just Maths brought out a lovely little PowerPoint helping students just remember the key things in the exam, and it's quite a nice piece of work, which I know my students have really appreciated. Lovely video there. It's a few years old now, but this kid takes his results home, shows his dad, and well, all I'll say is just have the sound up quite loud for that one, because it's a great little video to share with your students if you've not seen it before. I mentioned the first 8 questions, the special papers for our special students back 2018, 2 papers that are entirely those kind of grade 1, grade 2, grade 3 questions, but the 1 markers. I have a mathematical hooks Padlet, which has been received phenomenally well. I'm really pleased with that Padlet, and it keeps growing and growing. It's different ways that can introduce a topic to students. It's different conversation points. What do you see? What do you notice? Some are funny, some are really beautiful, some are interesting, some are odd, but just different way of looking at bits and pieces. command words there, you know, looking at the exam words that are used, the verbs that are used within the exam papers. That's a really good document there. Little bit of maths every day. My challenge to you at the end of the session is if you can get to level 10, then you're doing really, really well. I've known several people who've taken it straight home to their kids, and that's all that their children have done at home for the next 2 hours. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Nicola Whiston is doing some fantastic work and has done some lovely work on knowledge organisers, but she's taken all those references to year 10 and year 11 off for me. So that will take you off to a Padlet where you can look at those, the key things that students need to know around topics. Ben Gordon gives some exam technique. Someone mentioned on maths is a really good way that they can try predictive papers and things. We've got Johnny from MathsBot, Corbett Maths. So I think you will see the wonderful new revision guide from Just Maths there. There's a little PowerPoint presentation there. I think you will see the maths with a 4. That was where I was talking about those misconceptions. There's some really good videos there, 40 videos that will help. And that's my favourite little resource for dealing with angle bisectors, drawing triangles, because it's all animations. It's a lovely little piece of work. We know from the chief examiner's reports they're rubbish at drawing angles, bisecting angles. So that set of constructions there is about the best that's out there, next to Paul Collins's comic strip constructions, if you've got those. I will stop sharing now. It's just gone 5 o'clock. So let me go back. It's just gone 5 o'clock, and I think I am finished. Katie.
Hi, Julia. Thank you so much. That was amazing and exactly to time. I can't believe you finished it almost exactly spot on. We've left some time within the session for you as delegates to be able to ask Julia any questions you have about the content and address it directly through the chat. So if anyone does have questions, please could you put them in the group chat and we'll spend the next few minutes answering those. But just to reiterate, a full recording and the slide deck and the links to the Padlet will be sent out to everyone following today's meeting.
So I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has. The day I passed maths is brilliant, John. I really like that. It's a really good one to show students, and also the Armstrong and Miller exam invigilator sessions. They've got 3 comic skits which are all about exam invigilators and what invigilators get up to while you're sitting there doing your maths exam. Students love those, so have a look at those, Armstrong and Miller. I'll try and get them onto the Padlet as well, John. Any questions for anyone? Katie, I will just say that my email address is, yes, I'll try and bring back the 5 R's, Helen. We're working on it. I will try and put the, what was I going to say? What was I saying then? This is my age, I'm sorry. I was going to put something else on the Padlet. I will remember it and put it on, whatever it was.
Email. I think you said about your email.
Yeah, my email address is on the Padlet, so there we go. Right. Yeah. Speeding them up and still be accurate with their answers. I don't think the fact that the 5 R's is in 60 minutes and 5 pieces of work to do in 60 minutes, if you don't get every section done, it's not the end of the world. Or if some sections take a bit longer to complete, then that again isn't an issue. As long as they're doing shed loads of maths. The comic strip, Fiona, that's Armstrong and Miller. Exam invigilators. So it's Ben Miller and whoever Alexander Armstrong, isn't it? Armstrong and Miller, exam invigilators. Yes. Do you have a recommended scheme of 1-year delivery? There is a 1-year delivery plan on the Emporium in one of the drawers. And again, this is part of some of the research that I've been doing on those topic muddles. If you look up on Google for topic muddles in GCSE Maths, you may well find the list that's been trawled from the Chief Examiner's reports. That's the place to look, Rachel, for those topic muddles. That's your where you'll find out the information about what they are. Grade boundaries for a November exam? Who knows? Who knows, Angela? It will, it's this thing, isn't it, about not calculated grade. It's this thing about, you know, the what's the word I'm looking for? This is terrible. the grade boundaries being set once the cohort has sat. It's a real challenge. We don't know what the actual grade boundaries are until the cohort has sat. Depends on the strength of the cohort. It doesn't look like numbers are significantly up, although I think the spread from foundation and higher might be a bit skewed this year. It will be what it will be, and that's completely out of our control. The same proportion of students will always get that grade 4. The same proportion of students will always get that grade 3. It did go up 10% from summer 2019 to 2020, however, for that 15% of the whole cohort for further education. So there was a 10% jump from the summer 19 actual exam, to the 2020 calculated grades, which was quite a shock, really, because who knows whether it will dip down again this year. Who knows? It's a real challenge. How is the percentage looking for centre assessed grades next year? I have no idea. I think Edexcel will be able to answer these far better than me. Formalising mock procedures, it makes you laugh, doesn't it? Oh, you should have when you read Gavin Williamson, he said, you know, you should have a full mock in security. It's like, what do they think we do? What do they think that we do in class when we have a mock situation? We put them into that scenario, don't we? Yes, it's ridiculous, really, but there you go. Maths junior topic list, revision and questions. Yeah, there's some really good tips and suggestions coming forward here. Will the Pearson mock package meet these formal procedures? I would suggest they would most definitely would. I can't see any reason why they wouldn't. They will be looking at what the suggestion is if everyone goes into lockdown. There's even a chance that the November series isn't going to happen for some students around the country. So what's going to happen when those exam entries have been made and yet that no one can get anywhere, or maybe they are allowed to go in to sit the exam? I don't know. I would imagine that Edexcel will be watching this and will be on it 24/7. So I have no doubt that the best advice will come from the awarding bodies. The list of topics that are targeted to retake students. I think if you look at the Just Maths list there, Sophia, have a look at those, because those top 40 or top 60 topics now, I think it is for the 9 to 1 grading. I think the Just Maths topics have been a real kind of focus for research students. I'm scrolling up and down here. Yes, that bell curve. You'll always get the grade boundaries are always set in that particular fashion, are the same proportionate. We'll always get the particular grades. Do you have anything to encourage main course tutors to bring maths into their lessons and explicitly link it? Oh, yes, Jessica. So to my mind, when they're on a vocational pathway, every vocational pathway that I've ever seen in my entire life has an element of maths. And if I ruled the world, there would certainly be a unit of maths on every vocational class pathway, and also a unit of English, because it's all there. But it is about, they are charged with embedding maths in their vocational sessions, but actually it should be enhancing the maths because it's already there. And a lot of those teachers are crying out for alternative methods. They are really desperate to know. Geraldine, Dr. Frost, really, really good website. But those vocational staff members are desperate to help, but they've learned maths in a particular way, and that's how they teach it. They do not have that toolbox, which we encourage teachers in training. Certainly my training encourages people to fill that toolbox with as many different methods as you can. That would be my starting point. I was chair of governors at Writtle University. There we would encourage vocational staff members to sit their own GCSE and to deliver GCSE maths as well, because it gave them another string to their bow. And in these times, if you are an art and design teacher but also can teach GCSE maths, you are a very valuable commodity. There are a lot of people, as a result of economic downturn, there are a lot of people that then suddenly come to teacher training as a particular pathway that they'd never actually considered before. So I think there is an upside to the pandemic. Is one that actually I think there will be a lot more people training for the shortage areas. Skills-wise, yes, Maggie Harnew's work there, Catherine. Maths, yeah, with a 4 from Steve Blades there. We've got some very good alternative resources which are out there. A lot of them are paid for resources, but do not forget what's in the drawers already in the Emporium, because there's so much in there. But as I say, it's like a very, very full study, isn't it? You don't know which drawers to look in, and some of the drawers perhaps need a bit of a clear out, but I'm sure Edexcel will not not forgive me for saying that. But sometimes you just don't know where to look. You have to be very familiar with the Emporium to get to the right place. That's not a criticism at all, because it's just so much in there. And Emma, yes, you've got an art and business background and you now teach maths. Yes, so another string to your bow. It's probably helped with your own children. It's probably helped with other people's children. Again, teaching maths, you know, we're all in demand as private tutors and all sorts. From families that say, oh, could you just spend a couple of hours with you know, John, because he's not getting on very well. Yeah, interesting. Good. So there's lots of different bits and pieces in there now. Yes, yeah. So lots of comments coming in there, which if I've missed your question at all, or not tackled it very well, then we'll certainly have a look through those afterwards. But yes, keep your suggestions coming, your top tips as well, because that's where I learn stuff. As I say, yesterday I was learning about Pomodoro revision techniques with a tomato timer, and I'm going to go and buy a tomato timer now, one of these cameras that looks like a red tomato. And I'm going to look at Rust exam analysis, whether that's a structure by which students could look at their exam mock exam result and actually do something about it. We do live in interesting times, don't we, Marina? But yeah, it's interesting to come together. And I didn't have to do my hair and makeup, which is even better. Yeah, so it's been lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Julia. We're so grateful for today. It's been an absolutely brilliant session. My big takeaway, my personal takeaway will definitely be to be more Lauren from today. So thank you for that. And thank you so much to everyone for attending today's session. We really hope you found it useful. We would be so grateful if you could share your feedback when we get that sent out to you tomorrow, just to help us shape the support and events we offer going forward. We'll make sure you'll get a copy of the recording, the slide deck, the feedback form, and that's everything from me, really, just to say thank you once again. We hope you have a pleasant evening and take care, and bye. Thanks so much.